Welcome to the South Burlington School Board meeting. And I will start with any comments from the public regarding items that are not on the agenda. All right, seeing none, we'll move to amendments to the agenda. David?
The only thing we need to add is an executive session at the end of the meeting regarding the Ted Manazar School Board Award.
Okay. So with that change, we'll consider that amended. Any announcements?
I don't have announcements for you formally. Again, it's been a busy summer. As you know, things are concluding or winding up or winding down. I don't know whichever way you want to see that. We have convocation tomorrow. We then kick off. We've had new staff, new teachers in, all kinds of training that's been going on. We will have on Monday new student day. That's new students to the middle school, the high school, and any new students to our school system. That will happen on Mondays, first day on Tuesday. And again, we're full swing. So a lot of activity going on out on our athletic fields and in different areas of our schools. Facility-wise, we've been working through a multitude of projects. So those folks that have been in and around the high school have seen new windows being installed on the front of the high school, almost complete. And the phase one of the elevator project, although it doesn't involve the elevator, it involves more of the access, first floor access, where stairs don't need to be taken. So there's been a whole reconfiguration of that. Again, our crew, our administrators have worked hard to work around it, continued to work, and again, for the most part, everybody's been really accommodative to that. So those are all the announcements that I have.
Good. I have a quick one, if you'll indulge me. I think three of the board members were able to participate in City Fest this weekend, and as part of that, one, it was a great opportunity to kind of highlight the public school system, and got great feedback from folks. But I did want to say I was presented with this energy savings tips from one of our students at Orchard, I believe, Lainey Lamphere, and I'll leave this with the school to publish as you wish. But very active in the energy project within town, and we were very pleased to participate in that survey. So our students are working hard.
Nice.
All right. Any other announcements, board members? Great. So we'll move on to agenda item 6, master planning, financial stewardship, and city-school collaboration.
So I'll kind of work around this a little bit. City-school collaboration, Elizabeth and I have the opportunity to meet with Kevin Dorn and Pat Nowak. That continues. We haven't had a recent meeting. Last meeting was about 2.5 weeks ago. Again, collaboration around not just master planning and visioning or ideas, but also on other city school related matters. We will continue that. We also have, we're in receipt, as you know, of the final report from the task force. We see Art here actually tonight in the audience, and several other folks from the task force. But we've received that final report, and the board has actually just received that. I don't think you've fully digested all of it yet. My intention is to go through that and provide the board with some next steps from me, along with administrative feedback around where we go as a district. The board then has the opportunity to figure out some next steps around how we might advise and or support that work, looking at it from all aspects. So I think it's important for the public to know it is available now up on the websites, both on the city and the school. It is a very lengthy report, although you can move through it, and it's in PDF form, so you can move through it fairly appropriately based on chapters or areas that you're interested in. So again, I don't know if there's...
Yeah, I would just add to that, the board has scheduled a working session for August 31st. Do we have a location on that, David?
Yeah, we do. I can tell you in a second.
That is one of a couple of topics, correct?
Yeah. It's here.
Yeah, so a significant topic on the August 31st agenda is the next steps in the work plan provisioning. So that is open to the public, and that will be where a large part of the board's work really initiates there, following the study, the task force report. Any other board comments or questions there?
Nope.
Okay. All right, why don't we move to the superintendent's report?
David?
Yes.
Martin Lalonde wants to call him by phone.
Oh, sorry.
I think that phone isn't going to do it, so I could use my cell phone if that's.
That would be
what you
fine.
wanna
If
do.
you want to bring him on, so just so the public knows, we have, we're 3 board members present. We have one of our board members who's not able to make it. The other is, would be by phone, Martin Lalonde. So, John, if you can bring him in, that would be
Okay.
fine, yeah. So moving on to item 7. Again, I added it to my report because, again, to the board, I was getting a fair amount of feedback around, some feedback from folks around the South Burlington Rebels. And those of
Hey,
you
Mark.
who know, who've been around
Hey,
South Burlington schools,
Put me on my
you've
cell
known
phone.
that we have been the
And
South
put me on
Burlington
speaker.
School District. Each
thanks.
elementary school kind of has its own unique, what I'll say, logo, if you will.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can, thanks.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
There we go.
As does the high school, and the high school has had the Rebels, although about 20 years ago, it dropped the mascot and has maintained its name, Rebels. I put it on my report simply because I did get a little bit of feedback. I've copied and provided the board with some of that feedback, Front Porch Forum, some emails, and it's disparate in the email. There's a variety of folks that are, feel that it's extremely appropriate, and there's some that have said, don't feel it's appropriate. So I felt it was right for me to provide you with this feedback and allow you to have the opportunity to talk and or solicit some feedback from folks that might be here.
First off, board members, any comments or questions for David? Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Good evening, I'm Bob Walsh, and I wanted to address this issue of the Rebels. I sent you an email, I think you've all got it, so I won't rehash that whole thing, okay? But David had, for the public's consumption here, David had mentioned that they dropped the mascot. Well, I'd like to make just a brief comment about the fact that when the school was founded, they adopted the Rebels at that time, and the reason was, or the alleged reason, I can't document this, but I from my discussions and having been in here at this place about that time, I believe it's correct, that South Burlington had broken away, i.e. seceded from Burlington, and they adopted the symbols of the Confederacy. And it wasn't just the rebel, Captain Rebel, the mascot. They adopted the Confederate flag. They adopted the Tune Dixie. They had Confederate flag decals on the school buses. Now, granted, 20 years ago, we did phase out Captain Rebel and the Confederate flag. Now, as you may recall, at football games, the football team would be led on to the field with Captain Rebel in his uniform, waving a Confederate flag to the tune of Dixie. I had some friends of mine visiting from the South who thought that was nuts. But the school colors at that time were adopted, basically the basic Confederate gray. So this is a long-rooted tradition, and the name Rebels has been associated with that all these years. And just dropping Captain Rebel doesn't do the job, because in the comment that the fellow made in the 7 days, he referred to it as racist, and I'd have to agree with him. It's associated with the racist policies of the Confederacy, and you can't get away from it. There's been arguments to the fact that, well, maybe rebels meant the revolutionaries. But we didn't adopt the tricornered hat and the musket and Yankee Doodle as our symbol. So I would say that probably that argument doesn't really hold water. I think it's time, we have a sign out here on the school to build a proud tradition. And, when this was all adopted, please understand, I believe that nobody gave it any thought about this thing about racism and all that. I just don't think that happened. It was what's the word I'm searching for? Well, you have three types of racism. You have the covert, and you have the blatant, and you have the unintentional. That's a word. And it was unintentional, I'm sure, but it's still connected to that. And so I think that the time has come that we're at a time in South Burlington where there's a great change going on, very positive change. The city center, the schools are looking at reorganization. The town has just adopted a new logo. There's been a lot of research go out and adopt a logo. What about better time than to change this offensive, what I consider to be offensive symbol? And so, I'll conclude by just saying it's sort of ironical. We're standing here tonight in August of 2015, when on the 5th of August, 1864, 270 Vermonters died that day at the Battle of the Wilderness. And in the Civil War, over 5,000 were either died, and many more were injured. So I think it's time for us to recognize the fact that this symbol is inappropriate, and it's a good time to change, and I would encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Any other comments or questions from the public? I would offer, just from a personal perspective, and I think I've shared this. I know I was solicited for some comments early on, but I grew up in Vermont, not in the South Burlington community, but in Chittenden County, and participated in several districts that competed with South Burlington teams. And I have to say, I never recalled, which is more probably an effect of my recall than anything, but any reference to the rebels being affiliated with a confederacy. So I know, Mr. Burke, when I saw your Front Porch Forum post, that background was actually a surprise to me. And I've been on the board for 11 years now. So there clearly is some period of time. I know this discussion probably went on about 20 years ago. One of the things that I think our community and our public education system really promotes is thoughtful discussion and respectful discussion. And I guess I'd like to ask, with the permission of my board colleagues, to just ask our superintendent, what are the options when we look at, I've never known, I think, Mr. Burke, you were interviewed on a radio program, and I don't think anything like this has gone to a referendum, for instance, but I think it's by a respectful discussion in the community that we kind of highlight issues that may be either resurfacing or that need to have an updated discussion based on more current information. So I guess I'd just ask you, David, what are some of the options that the board might consider?
Well, I think, right out of the gate, I mean, this is fairly new to this board. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that. You've been here 10. This is starting your 11th year, and other board members have been in the community. It's fairly new. I think that safe to say that there may be other people that have opinion and value and perspective and input. It would seem to me that it would be appropriate that if you're wanting to continue this discussion, then we put it on publicly warned as its separate item. And allow for perhaps pose some questions that you might want to have answered, and allow the public to come in and weigh in on that, on responding to some of those questions in a public meeting. And then I would say from that feedback that you have, similar to what Mr. Walsh has done tonight, you make some decisions on next steps. If in fact the information, the amount of feedback could be significant, that would make it, that would be a determining direction on kind of next steps where you might go. So I don't want to say one is not okay, but I think, you know, we owe it to the citizens of South Burlington, the 17,000 or so, that we'd like to get some of their feedback. And again, this is important, I think, similar to what the city's doing around, you know, how they're trying to move things forward. So again, I want this to be a democratic process. I think it's important for the community to weigh in. We publicize our meetings and we record them, and I think that would be my next step suggestions.
How does the board feel?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I know when we were standing at City Fest trying to engage as many community members as we could, that was a question we kept trying to prompt people to talk to us about. So I think more engagement from the community on this topic would be very beneficial.
Sounds good.
Yep. Any comments from the public?
I'd just like to add that I'm a graduate of South Burlington High School, and I've gotten a lot of feedback once this has come out into the press this past couple of weeks from my classmates who have said, hey, we're the rebels. I never ever associated this with the Confederacy. So what's the deal? And I was a student of yours, Mr. Walsh. You may not remember, but I have a lot of respect for what you're saying, and I do think we need to gather some more opinions about it. But I don't think that most of the students at South Burlington High School associate this with the Confederacy.
I'd like a way for the, as a alumni director, for the alumni to respond, if you do have an open forum. Yeah, obviously, they can't physically be here, a lot of them. So if there's a way that they can do that by email or something, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, it sounds like by board consensus, we're going to ask David to put it on a future agenda and publicize the public discussion and solicit input.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 9 and set the agenda for the board work session on the 31st and the regular meeting of September 2nd. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Oh, geez.
You're
Sorry,
okay.
Ed.
You're okay.
I was trying to give you a
She's
break.
trying to help.
I was trying to
That's
give you a
good.
break.
You should have taken that, Mr. Hockenberry.
Wow, I haven't done that before. All right, we're going to move to agenda item 8 and talk about the student activities update, which I know the board's been looking forward to.
Yeah. So while Ed and Stuart's assisting and setting up, again, we're proud to have Ed Hockenberry with us tonight, the Director of Student Activities, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about co-curriculars. So again, Ed's starting his second year. He's made it through the first year and actually done quite well, and we're excited to have him. So we will move a little bit, Ed, and
You want to
have
highlight
the floor.
Martin, what's happening? Says he's not going to see that.
Yes, Martin, unless you can FaceTime, Ed Hockenberry is going to do a presentation. I'll send you the PowerPoint at some point.
I'll just use my imagination.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate the opportunity to present to the board. As they said, I finished my first year, entering year 2 as the activities director. The first year was a very steep learning curve. I'll say that for somebody who had been an athletic director for 17 years at another school. This was different. It was challenging. It was fun. It was a lot of different things, and I really think I learned a lot. You know, the report I'll present to you tonight, I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm still learning as I go. In 1 year in this job, there's still a lot I have left to learn. But I will share with you some information, some facts and some opinions, where I think we are and where I think I would like to see things go moving forward. The PowerPoint, Mr. Burke saw me on the way in and is a little scared. It's a little scared because I think there's 29 slides. It's not going to take that long. I'm going to cruise through. I provided copies of the PowerPoint to the board. You can read some of it at your leisure. I'm certainly not going to read each slide to you, but by all means, if there are questions when we get to any slides, feel free to stop me. Okay, I included the first 4 slides are our philosophy and goals and objectives at the high school and middle school within the student activities program. So these are examples of slides I'm not going to read to you. They are also, I provided copies of the co-curricular digest that we provide to the public at the high school, and information like this is in there as well. So this is our philosophy for the high school, goals and objectives, and then the same 2 slides for the middle school. If board members do read any of those, if you have any feedback, we did talk particularly this year a bit at the middle school. When I got here, I had never, worked at a middle school before, and I did communicate with the coaches and the principal, and we did look at the philosophy at the middle school a little bit closely, and we had some good conversations around that, and I think we're doing some good things at the middle school as we move forward. Here's our goals and objectives at the middle school, and just to sort of summarize our philosophy, goals, and objectives, I think student activities and athletics are all about education outside the classroom. We want our kids to have fun, we want them to be engaged, we want them to be active, we want them to be able to explore their interests outside the classroom. We try to provide a comprehensive program of athletics and activities to meet the interests of the kids, and that's an ever-changing process. We're adding new activities, new sports. We'll get to some of that later, but through it all, we want the kids to learn those really valuable life lessons and just have fun and create those memories. I'm sure all of us in the room who participated, whether it was in sports or activities, you have great memories from high school. And one of the things from my first year, I love the atmosphere at the 2 schools. I think it's really positive. I think we do have a lot of kids engaged in our programs, and I think they really are connected to the school and the community through their participation in co-curricular. So I really am proud of that, and I think we're in a good place. Programs and participation at the high school: 23 sports, 54 teams, 34 student activities and clubs, number of students on rosters, participation average per season, 83% participation rate in an activity or club at the high school. I looked at Mike O'Day's report from a few years ago. I don't have quite all the numbers that he provided to you. I can get more, and I did not have participation figures for Tuttle, but the participation is very strong, I think, at both schools. We have a lot of kids playing, and we really are looking to to grow the program. I think particularly in Tuttle, we looked at the activities program. We're trying to provide new opportunities for kids all the time. We'll get to some more of that. Facilities, this is just a list of facilities. I don't need to go through it item by item with you folks, but we do, we have a variety of facilities for our athletic teams. But when it's interesting here, having been the athletic director at Essex, where there's a large number of athletic facilities at the high school and then 2 separate middle schools with their own facilities, it's different here, and it's hard, and we are really pressed for space on this campus in particular, which causes us to use the facilities at Dorset Park, and we play field hockey down at Central, and we have cross-country race at Red Rocks, and so we do use some facilities. The rec department is wonderful to work with. We have a very good, mutually beneficial, respectful relationship with the rec department. We help them, they help us, so that does make things better. But the list of facilities, you can see it is what it is, but when you put all those kids out there, it gets a lot smaller than what you see there. We'll get to some of that a little bit later as well. Funding, I have budget numbers. You folks have access to the budget numbers in here. I just sort of listed the amount. I guess I would highlight booster contributions last year were over $32,000. From what I know, that may be the most ever. I guess I can't say for sure. It's certainly a lot more than it has been the last few years. I did look at those numbers. And one of the things that they purchased was an electronic timing system for our track. Which was just a wonderful addition. If you think about a track meet, for years we were hand timing. It was somebody like me standing at a line pressing a plunger, start and stop, and that's not accurate. And one of the problems with that is that you have an athlete such as Kayla Gilding, who just graduated last year, the fastest woman in Vermont, you could say, right? The top sprinter in Vermont. And none of her times on our track counted until we counted towards setting records, for example, until we purchased the electronic timing system. So that was a much needed addition to the program, and you know, the boosters, their contributions are just tremendous, and they're really dedicated, hardworking. I have a slide about boosters coming up a little bit later. Our gate receipt income was up substantially this past year from previous years. Gate receipt income is interesting as an athletic director. It's very dependent on how good your teams are, and it's very dependent on the weather. So it can really vary widely, but that gate receipt figure is higher than it has been in recent years. One of the reasons being we did add a number of night games in both the fall and the spring. I added to the schedule some night games for field hockey, soccer, and lacrosse in particular. A couple reasons. Number one, gate receipts, and number two is kids love playing under the lights, and that's what we're here for. So we added some night games. Personnel, I posted 40 coach or advisor positions last year. So when you want to talk about somebody who deals a lot with personnel, that's me. And they just, the turnover is high. You know, you get a parent who comes in and does 6th grade soccer 1 year. Well, that's a 1-year deal, and you got to replace that person the next year. So the turnover rate is very high, particularly in the middle school positions I found, and then some of the lower level high school positions as well. We did add a student activities coordinator position at Tuttle. That is Glenn Button. We had a hiring process that I thought went very well. We had a number of very qualified candidates, you know, and we arrived at a decision of Glenn Button, who works here in the middle school. It has been fantastic having Glenn in that role. Being that he works here in particular, he knows the staff, he knows the kids. He's already made some wonderful changes and additions to the program, and it's just been tremendous. So that's been great. Hiring process, you know, I involve students and parents. It does depend on the hire. We just hired our varsity girls soccer coach. We hired Rob Cole, who is enduring a very hot first week of his tenure at South Burlington High School. But that included a couple parents, it included a couple students, another teacher coach, so we form a committee and we do a pretty thorough hiring process. Evaluation process, I involve students, we get feedback from students in the evaluation process. That is one of my goals for this coming year. After having been here for a year, seeing how things go, I plan on making some changes to the evaluation process. We got approval very recently for 2 new coaching positions. We added Ultimate as a varsity sport this past year, which was wonderful. And the numbers are so high in Ultimate already that we needed to add a JV coach position. You know, we had 40+ kids out there, one coach trying to manage basically 2 teams. So we added a JV Ultimate position, and we added a very well-deserved paid position for the bowling coach position, which has been an unpaid activity for the past 3 years. Numbers are solid, so we have a bowling team. We added a coach position. At the high school, we have 75 paid coach positions, 27 paid advisor positions, 20 paid coaches, 11 advisors at Tuttle, and overall approximately 25 volunteer coaches. So it's a lot of personnel to manage. You know, it's great working with these people. You know, one of the challenges, quite honestly, in dealing with personnel is all of the different paperwork requirements these days. You know, you can't just say, hey, I'd like to volunteer to coach. Oh no, you got to do, you know, which is good. I mean, they have to do background checks and fingerprints. It's not a complaint, but it's quite a process. So the personnel part of the job takes up quite a bit of time. Coaches training. This is one of the things that's also adding layers of responsibility to coaches. You know, it used to be, you know, when I was in high school, you hired the coach, and the coach had to know about the sport, and off you went to practice. Well, now they have to be trained in a number of things. Concussion in sports, certainly concussions is a hot topic in sports these days. We have Denise Alosa here as our athletic trainer. She's amazing. And this week, I've been thanking my lucky stars that we have her, because she's been managing the hot weather with our teams really well. But she stays on top of the concussions. We have a lot of information on our website about concussions, our concussion management protocol. So I think we are ahead of the curve when it comes to concussions. When other schools have questions, they call Denise. So we're in very good shape there. Our coaches have to be certified in first aid, health, and safety for coaches. They have to be certified in the fundamentals of coaching. And new next year, the VPA is requiring coaches to be trained, not certified, in CPR and AED. Most of our coaches already are, again, thanks largely to Denise. NFHSlearn.com. If you're ever curious about any of these certifications, that's the website. National Leader in Interscholastic Education. There's all kinds of other courses there. I frequently refer coaches there to not only do the required certifications, but to do various other trainings and courses that are offered by the NFHS. It's an excellent site. Safety initiatives, new safety initiatives that are coming up. We have Heads Up Football. Our school, the VPA signed on with Heads Up Football. That's a new thing that's come down by way of the NFL. Denise and I actually attended a conference at NFL headquarters. I did not see Roger Goodell or Tom Brady when I was there, but the NFL headquarters are pretty cool. That was fun. And so the Heads Up Football program is a new trend in athletics, and we are part of that. Joe McDonald has been trained. Bob Metz has been trained. They then train their staff. It's around safe equipment fitting, teaching tackling technique properly, various other components. It's a nice program. AED, that's a requirement I already mentioned. Concussions, anyone can save a life program is pretty neat. We talked about that at the conference I was at, and basically that involves you know, situations like what happened at Patrick Gym last year, the Rice basketball coach, okay, a sudden cardiac incident, things like that, where you put in place you know, within your teams, for example, responsibilities for different people on the team. The captains can be assigned a duty, the coach can be assigned a duty. You involve and train your members of your team in how to respond to a situation. This is just sort of coming to us now. It isn't in full effect here. Denise is working on it. We're talking about having drills. Okay, that's one of the things that might happen. You know, we have fire drills at schools. We may have a drill about a cardiac situation or a heat stroke situation, something like that could occur on an athletic field. So these are things that are coming. Again, with Denise on board, and you know, I certainly always stay abreast of all the VPA requirements. I do think we're in very good shape when it comes to safety initiatives. Some of our successes on the field, activities, classrooms. I mean, last year I did the All-Sport Awards night for the first time, which was a fun night at the end of the year. I don't know if any of you were at that event, but it's just amazing. It's that culminating event of the school year, and you just see the caliber of kids we have, and it's truly amazing. And last year's senior class, just remarkable. I mean, it was my first senior class to go through, and I had a son in it. So did Julie. But, you know, just remarkable, the number of talented athletes and students in that class. 59 kids with a GPA of 3.5 or higher. That's just in the senior class. So that was amazing. Very successful teams the last 2 years, 14 state championships in 2 years, which is fantastic. And then Scholars Bowl team. Debate and Forensics has won multiple championships. I don't believe they won it last year, but they're consistently at the top. The Real World Design team, national champions, and the VPA is introducing robotics as a competition this coming school year. So you can count on South Burlington having a team in that. I think Steve Barner's pretty excited about that. So. And then I listed a few of the individual athletic successes. I certainly could have gone into a lot greater depth there. That's just a few highlights of really top honors in the state. So we're certainly very proud of our athletic success and our success in the classroom. Captain's training is something we do each season with our sports programs. In the fall and the spring, it's led by Sheila Stawinski. Yvette Amlo-Bose leads it in the winter. And there's a manual that's 40-some pages long, but they're trained in communication, in assessing their own leadership skills, in team development, forming and bonding and things like that. It's just, I could go into greater depth about that program, but we had it when I was at Essex too. And one of the things that I've always found in both schools is this captain's training program, very few people know about it. It solves problems before they really become problems. Sheila and Yvette work with the athletes. They speak with them outside of the class sessions, and they talk about situations that are going on within teams, and they really help with the communication and how help kids deal with problems. One of the greatest things that happens in sports programs is the adversity these kids face. And I think this is a great way that Sheila and Yvette and the captain's program are able to help kids, the leaders of these teams, work through those problems with their teammates. So it's a really, I think, an unsung part of our athletic program, and I wanted to mention it to you. Athletic Leadership Council is a new thing that I started last year. It was one of my three primary goals when I got here, and we started an Athletic Leadership Council. It's a group of athletes representing all the different teams at the school. We had about 30 kids. We kicked it off middle part of the year. We have a lot more that we're looking to do in the future, but we did a blood drive. This is 4 of our students when they read to elementary school students during Dr. Seuss Week, and that went over great at the schools. One of the things I started them doing, which they weren't always happy with me about, but we helped clean up the bleachers after the games. Drives me crazy that everybody leaves and there's all this trash in the bleachers that we just think our custodians should pick up. So I had the kids help with that. We did fan t-shirts. Coach appreciation at the end of the year. We did a coach appreciation breakfast at the end of the year where the kids brought and made the food, invited the coaches in, had breakfast with them just to say thank you. Maintenance appreciation, the kids made some things and gave them to our maintenance department. One of the things that I try to do through the Athletic Leadership Council is teach these kids not to take for granted all that they're given and being part of the sports program at a high school. You know, they really get a lot, and they're very fortunate, and it's important that they give something back. Operation Hat Trick was a great thing. We sold hats that were camouflage hats, and they had the SB logo on the front, and all the money went to veterans organizations. So that was a success, and the kids participated in a Spectrum Sleep Out to raise some money for homeless shelter. Rebel Boosters contributed $32,000, new electronic timing system I mentioned. Active membership increased from about 5 or 6 to about 16 to 18. It is usually me and 16 to 18 very nice ladies in the room. If there are any other men who are interested in being part of the Boosters. Tim Bakley usually shows up about halfway through, but until then it's just me. But it's been great. The Boosters, I mean, the enthusiasm in the room is tangible. You know, the people are really there to do all they can to support our athletic program. And such a nice group of people who genuinely care about kids, and they're full of ideas and enthusiasm, so it's a fantastic group. And they brought the Tuttle sports programs on board this past year too, so I think we're going to see some nice support for our Tuttle programs through the Boosters as we move forward. 3 main fundraisers: game concessions, ski swap, which is coming up. In fact, there was a meeting tonight, right? Some of you probably went to the meeting tonight, right? Susan was there. So the ski swap is coming up, and the Boosters Calcutta. So those are the primary revenue sources for the Boosters. Community connections. I think we made some good strides in this area over the past year. Operation Hat Trick, as I mentioned, I thought was great connection with our military and veterans. On the right there is our baseball team. That was Operation Hat Trick when we had the big day. Colonel Patrick Guiney from the fighter wing of the Air National Guard came over and threw out the first pitch. And the guy has quite an arm. We wanted to have him stay and pitch the game, but he had to go. And so, you know, that was great. We did, Kevin Reel, my friend, the athletic director at CVU, passed away. We did a red out for the basketball game when we played CVU, and that was great. Rec department, we had rec department. Down there is the, the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves or something. But the rec department basketball played at halftime. And we did it for a girls' game, we did it for a boys' game. And you talk about some happy kids. And we did it, I think, at 2 boys' games, and one of the games, the game for the varsity didn't go so well, okay? The varsity, I think we might have been playing Rice or something, so it wasn't the best game for the varsity. But that was the highlight, the little kids playing at halftime. I mean, loud cheers, it's just great. It's such a fun and rewarding and easy community connection to make, so we did that we also did a Dolphins football halftime game, which was awesome. So those type of things, we're certainly always looking for opportunities. Our baseball team did a nice volunteer effort with the rec department at a end of the season baseball event they held. New initiatives this year: public communication. I'll get to the website in a minute. My Twitter, I joined Twitter with the encouragement and assistance of Mr. Burke last August. I'm nowhere near at his level. I can admit that.
Is that a goal?
That's one of my goals for this year. Right?
He's not going to get that.
I might have half as many followers as him, but but I do try to use the Twitter to communicate with the public about things that are happening within the program, and then I also try to use it as best I can to communicate with parents, kids, send out some resources, some things about coaching or about sports that I think are particularly important or helpful. So You know, I have found it to be a pretty useful tool. Of course, now they're saying it's Instagram, so now I'm supposed to get Instagram, is that right? I got it, not yet? Yeah, okay. So, just when you think you catch up, you're supposed to do something else, so. Athletic Leadership Council, I mentioned, student, coach, parent resources. I include a lot of those on the website. I am always talking to my coaches about new resources, things they can do. We had Joe Ehrman come. That's Joe Ehrman on the upper right with my two sons. He came and spoke. He did a couple of different presentations. He's a nationally recognized author and you know, does workshops and speeches around the country, and it was great having him here. So I'm always looking to do things like that. I got an idea brewing for this year. I can't tell anybody about it yet, so gotta see if I can pull it off. Glenn Button I mentioned. We had fireworks at the homecoming game. Big hit among the students, that's for sure. We instituted middle school coaches and parent-athlete meetings. We really hadn't had meetings at the middle school, so we have those now. I think those are pretty well received. It's just a way to communicate with parents and answer their questions. I have interns who work in my office, student interns. They work in my office through the CDC in the high school, so that's nice. I think it helps them learn a little bit, and they're certainly helpful to me as well. Hazing prevention workshops. I've just recently completed our 2 fall coaches meetings, and one of the things that I'm now requiring our teams to do is a hazing prevention workshop. We see what's going on up in Milton, and it's scary and it's tragic, and we certainly don't want it to happen here, so our coaches are asked to talk to the kids about hazing, certainly in an effort to prevent that from ever happening here. Rebel boosters, including Tuttle programs I mentioned, rec department connections. We used Dorset Park facilities more this year. I moved the middle school baseball teams up there. We had 5 baseball teams on 2 fields here 2 years ago. It's too much, we couldn't handle it. I mentioned earlier the rec department is very supportive, and we share facilities well, so that was a new thing with our baseball program this spring. Public communication website and Twitter. So I thought I would just, have any of you gone to the new website yet? Some of you have seen it, some haven't, so I won't take long, but I wanted to show a little bit about the website. So it's through Sport Engine, and you know, in communication with them, they design it, and then we add information to it. It's an ongoing process. It's still in need of work. Mr. Burke has been very helpful. He did some of the fancy stuff you see here. I'm still learning that. He's a veteran with Sport Engine, and so his suggestions have been great. But you know, we're in the process of getting all the information on there. We've did our registration process went quite well this fall. We have, you know, instructions here, and there's links and there's forms, and this is how people register for their sports. So we use it for that. Here's our teams. You know, each team has a page, and you know, we put some pictures in there, slideshows. This is where we can post announcements about the different teams. I got to show you this. This is funny. Okay, our athletic directory. So this is how people can reach our office and all of our coaches. And do any of you know David Martin, our boys soccer coach? That's his high school graduation picture. When I asked him to send me a picture, that's what I got. So, he does not look like that now. So, you know, as I said, the website is a work in progress. I think we're really headed in the right direction with it. Athletic medicine, you know, we talked about it earlier. Denise has a page that she updates. This is where we have all kinds of concussion information. She just posted our revised concussion action plan, which is just now the model. All the other schools in the state are using it or copying elements of it. So Rebel Boosters has a page. Right now we are, you know, promoting the boosters are selling gold cards, and they're signing up concessions workers, and here's their newsletter. So, you know, I think it's a good tool for communicating with the public. We're getting some positive responses about it so far, so pleased with that. Okay, go back to slideshow. All right, and you know, there's my Twitter feed. I had an example in there of Twitter. We already talked about that a little bit. Student, coach, parent resources. These are 3 samples. On our website is a link for student, coach, and parent resources. Proactive coaching is one of my favorites. Changing the Game project. John Gordon. You know, these are things that I am consistently trying to share with coaches and with people in the general public. I think these are good ways to really try to get people to keep sports in perspective. We all know they get emotional, people get upset, people, tend to get carried away, and I try to use these things like this to focus people on what's really important in sports in an educational setting. New sports and activities, Varsity Ultimate this year. Bowling has been a club. It's now a team. They do compete for a championship. Volleyball. This is one of the things that Glenn Button really got off the ground this year. But we had a volleyball club in the spring at Tuttle, and we had excellent participation. And they went to a couple of little tournaments. And one of my goals for next year is to bring volleyball to the high school. It's a great sport. I started it when I was the athletic director at Essex, and it's fantastic. I did find we got some kids. One of the reasons to start a new sport, in my opinion, is to get kids out who aren't already playing something. And I think volleyball is a really good way to do that. So we have a volleyball club that's going to kick into high gear with the start of school at the high school this year. And so volleyball is on the horizon. We're going to be starting an intramural basketball program for 6th graders at Tuttle. I got some feedback last year about, we need to provide an opportunity for 6th graders at Tuttle. We're going to try to do that, again, with Glenn Button's help. We had 8 new South Burlington High School activities. I think I listed 6 of them there, but students come to me with ideas for new clubs or activities, and there's a process. They have to fill out a little application. They have to get an advisor, and if we determine that it's, a good thing for kids, then that's how I think we stay current with what the kids' interests are. Needs. So this is what I said at the All Sport Awards, where I think we're increasing the participation and our opportunities for kids. Speaks to a healthy program, tells us our kids are doing good things, but it also highlights a shortage of space for a number of our activities, and there are identified needs for physical education, recreation, and athletic facilities that would greatly benefit our schools and community. So I want to bring some of those to your attention. Outdoor fields. I'm guessing the board has heard before about the need for outdoor bathrooms. But thanks to Bob Gilding, we have the nicest looking portalets you'll see in any facility. He puts flowers around them, and he makes them look very nice. But I do think we can do better. We're going to have to replace the turf field. John Stewart and I have been communicating about that. Baseball field. We have our really nice baseball field, but we have the issue with the neighbors right there. We keep doing things to prevent foul balls going into the neighbors' yards. Pole vault runway. One of the first interactions I had with a student last year is, Mr. Hockenberry, when are we going to have pole vault here? We had a student who was competitive at the highest levels in the state in pole vault, and we don't do pole vault here because there's no facility for it. And just an overall shortage of space that I highlighted earlier. In the fall and the spring, when you go outside, we can't fit everybody here. And in the spring, it was really challenging. It was very hard because particularly in the early spring, when all of our fields aren't ready, there just isn't room, and kids are practicing later and later at night, or they're practicing on subpar facilities. So I do think we need space. The Tundra field, we've got a press box, and I would invite any of you to come up in the press box when I go up there for the first JV football game of the year and plug in the scoreboard. And the pigeons will all fly out, and they've left some things behind in there, and it shakes in the wind. I go over to one side of the press box and it leans that way, and then I go over to the other side. It's a little scary. So I think that needs to go. The picture on the right was a recent picture 3 days ago of the Tundra field in its best condition of the year, by far. That field right now is in mint condition for an athletic field, and that's what it looks like. And that's just not, I just think we can do better. I have talked to our maintenance folks. It is not their fault. It is not anything that they are doing wrong. It is a drainage situation that we have options where we could sink a bunch of money. I could have that field top dressed and rolled and aerated and do all these things and play at grass, and then after it rains and we practice on it, it would look like that again, and all that money would be wasted. So we have to solve the drainage problem in order to make that a usable field. I estimate that about 40% of our fall and spring seasons, that field is unusable. And in a school that already has a shortage of space, I think we need to make that field something we can utilize. And it is an injury hazard. I do have coaches sometimes say they don't want to use it because they're afraid that kids are going to turn ankles. We did do some maintenance on it. I don't want you to think we just leave it there and ignore it. We do some maintenance on it, but we're at a point where a decision has to be made about what to do with the field. Tennis courts, certainly the finest tennis program in the state of Vermont among high school tennis, and the facility is not worthy of our school or community. The cracks, we had the cracks filled this spring. The court, was it resurfaced last year? A little over a year ago?
It's been almost 3 years.
It's been almost 3 years. So what they told me when I met with the people that fixed the cracks, they said that it wasn't built originally to be a tennis court, right? It was built to be a hockey rink at some point, and so it doesn't go deep enough. And so in the winter, the cracks just come back every winter. You can resurface it, you make it look pretty temporarily, and the cracks are just gonna come back. So I think, and then in addition, 3 existing courts need 4, you know, that doesn't seem like a big deal. In high school tennis, they play 7 matches, 5 singles matches and 2 doubles matches. So when you have 3 courts, you play 3 and then 1. And people are there that much longer. If you have a close match, that match takes a lot longer. When you go to 4 courts, you play 4 and then 3, and then it's a huge time save, and it's a great addition in practice to have 4 courts instead of 3. And the puddles, I squeegeed the puddles a number of times myself. There are significant depressions in those courts, and you know, I really believe something needs to be done. Facilities, gym space, our gym is nice. I mean, that's a great picture. Our gym looks great. It was refinished this summer. It looks beautiful. That's an estimate, the top figure, 15 to 20% less practice time for basketball teams. That's my estimate after coming from Essex High School, where they have 3 full-size basketball courts in their gym. That may be a luxury, but our teams do not practice nearly as much as the Essex basketball teams. And you know, so I think it's a shortage of space. We have in phys ed, there are times that I'll go in for phys ed classes, and one class is doing something on the court and the other class is on the stage waiting because, you know, there isn't enough space to do 2 activities at the same time. Storage space is really at a premium. Need for additional basketball practice space for youth, school and youth programs. You know, I've identified our basketball programs as ones that I would really like to see improve. And in order to do that, you have to get the feeder programs going. And there's a real shortage of gym space in our community for feeder programs. I know that from being a youth basketball coach in South Burlington as well. And then the Tuttle Gym, not the best place for spectators to watch a basketball game. It would be great to have gymnasium with some seating in it at the middle school. Fitness center, these are pictures of our weight room facility. On the right is the balcony where you have to weave in and out of the machines as you go, and Joe McDonald has done a really nice job with that weight room. Okay, he really has done the best he can bringing in equipment. You can get, you know, you can have a student, depending on what sport they're doing, you can have them get a good workout in there. It's not that we don't have what we need, but the equipment, most of those benches are ripped and they have duct tape on them, and the equipment is just old, it's antiquated. The facility can't fit any larger teams. You know, lack of use by students and teams. You know, our teams don't use it as much as they would. I saw that firsthand at Essex when they had a facility not unlike this, and then went to the new facility, and the use by the students and teams increased dramatically. And so there's a lot of benefits there. And we have the relocation that is necessitated by the elevator project, which is happening next summer, correct? So we're going to have to move all that equipment from the balcony into the small gym. And so, you know, that's coming, which there's ripple effects there to then what we can do in the small gym. And then I have funding. We do get a lot of questions now about, do you have a trainer for middle school sports? We don't yet. I put that on there. It would be great to have it, and we can't add that workload certainly to Denise. Uniform budget at Tuttle and South Burlington. Uniforms are really expensive these days. Right now there's $1,000 in the budget for uniforms at Tuttle, and that doesn't come close to providing the needs for our uniforms at Tuttle. And then the equipment budget at Tuttle is pretty small as well. Some of my observations after first year, you know, it's a wonderful place to work, and the enthusiastic participation of our students. I mean, the students, I mentioned earlier, they love being part of activities and athletics at the high school and at the middle school. So that's the best. I find, in comparison to where I've been, the administrative awareness and support of athletics and activities is tremendous. Tremendous at the high school, at the middle school, superintendent. I think it's just wonderful. We have great coaches and advisors. We have supportive parents, strong youth programs, great community sport. Love my office. Huge upgrade coming from Essex to South Burlington. Huge.
It's temporary office.
Temporary.
It's gonna be the gym next week.
Weight room. Yeah. And the Rebel Swarm, I mean, the students at games, they're really fun. You know, they get into it. Occasionally I have to talk to one of them who graduated.
He's a fan favorite.
He absolutely is. He gets close to the line a little too often, let's say. But anyways, the Rebel Swarm, the kids at games, they just get into it. They're really a lot of fun. Areas in need of improvement, I talked about facilities need. You know, we moved toward the separation of the Tuttle and the high school AD positions. You know, honest feedback after my first year, it's overwhelming. I feel like I have a lot. How many teams? 75 teams when you add the teams between the high school and the middle school. And I'm responsible for all those teams and all those schedules, and it's overwhelming, and that's where mistakes can happen. And I feel like we started moving that direction, but having an athletic director here at Tuttle in the building, I think would be very good for the school. Athletic or activities director. Full-time administrative assistant, Lynn Kynock, who you introduced said I survived my first year, wouldn't have without Lynn Kynock. I can promise you that. Wonderful, amazing in all respects, and she works very hard. But with the volume of teams and activities we have, it would be great to have full-time. She does split time with athletics and activities and special ed. Some of my goals, I want to, you know, I talked about the facility improvements. I know what's going on in the community. I would love to be part of working towards facility improvements. The website is going to be a point of emphasis for me this year. I want to get to the point where we add pages for activities. I want to increase the middle school athletics and activities presence on the website. I'm going to be educating coaches and advisors on how they can use the website. So that's a point of emphasis for me. Ongoing for me is coach professional development and evaluations. I want to tweak our evaluation process and put some time into that this year. Athletic event site supervision, a little bit selfishly motivated. I'm here a lot for a lot of games at night after school. And really, that's pretty simple. I kind of just have to ask because there's a lot of people who are willing to help, you know, so that's, you know, I already have some thoughts on that for this year. And that's it. There you have it. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board of the public? Great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, go ahead. Art.
It was more of a comment than a question. It seems like we need a new high school.
All in favor? All right.
That was easier than I thought.
Yes.
Are the captains trainings for captains across the board, Tuttle, JV, and varsity?
Varsity captains.
Only varsity.
Varsity captains. And I got that question back when I was at Essex too. You know, there were some people who were encouraging us to work with the JV captains and so forth, which, you know, it's a possibility. We do find that what they're doing is definitely geared toward the older, you know, more mature athletes. We've talked about different ideas about captains in training. Could we do something for them, you know? So it's something that has been discussed, but right now it's varsity captains. Susan.
Where are you going to put the gymnastics when the weight room has to move into the small gym?
Yep, that's already happening. They're going to GMG, Vermont
So that's going to be this year?
Yes, that's starting this year. Yep.
And how are you going to get them to those facilities?
Yeah, we're practicing in the morning because they have CBU there in the afternoon. So after school, so there's going to be morning practices and yeah. So yeah, now there's a downside to that, which is the convenience, but the facilities. I mean, that's one of the things I didn't mention with regard to the gym. You can't practice vault. They almost never practice the vault because they don't have room to set it up in the small gym.
They always had to drag the stuff
They
out.
have to drag it out, but they maybe did it once a week,
right.
You know, so.
It'll be like a hockey parent, Susan.
Yeah. Right. Cindy, I saw next, yep.
I think involving the JV, especially, you know, captains in that training would be really beneficial. Anything or anytime you can help develop leadership skills like that, I think is a huge asset. You know, even if they're not captains once they bump up to varsity,
Right.
any exposure to that type of brief explanation that you had on that, I think would be amazing for those kids.
Yeah,
So-
okay, good
On
point.
that note, I think that, and I don't know if this is the right venue, but if you were to have your varsity captains with your JV and your middle school captains together in some sort of leadership program
Mhm.
outside of going to that training maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, all doable. I mean, all depend on resources and
Yeah.
time as well. So we're lacking those a little bit. I did see Paula's hand next.
Yeah, I didn't notice, did you say you could sign up for sports on the Tuttle link to the Rebels?
Well, we did that, here. We don't have a electronic registration yet for Tuttle. That's something that Glenn and I have talked about, actually. So for now, what we did with that is Tuttle Middle School students print and complete this participation form. So we have a form there that they can fill out and turn in on the first day. But
Is it, on the website, is it your intention to list registration deadlines? Because they normally do it via announcements, which are
yeah.
almost never heard.
Right. So last year, the way it was done, I mean, when I got here, basically first day of school, the sign-ups were out for fall sports. And kids would come sign up and they'd make announcements and, you know, they'd be pulled together and have a meeting and they'd start practice. So, you know, there are definitely better ways to do it, which is what we're working on. We already, you know, we're gonna have the parent meeting, which will be an opportunity to get information out to everybody. And, you know, so we're moving in that direction. I'd be very surprised if by next year we didn't have a electronic registration and sign up. So we're moving towards that. Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you. I think that these activities, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, of course, but from the public, it is immensely important that we have these programs in place, and I think a lot of people think that extracurricular means unnecessary, but I think my kids would be absolutely lost without sports and all the other activities that they offer after school. And as you said in the beginning, very much an education, and just because it's elective doesn't mean that it's any less important. And I thank you for your time and effort, and I'm so glad that we're rebels and that we, and, well, whatever term you want to use, I'm happy with that, but just that it feels good to be part of it, and I think our community enjoys that too.
Yeah. There's a really nice bond between the community and the schools, athletics and activities, definitely. Yeah, thank you.
Martin, it's Elizabeth. Did you have any questions?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
We're just checking if you're paying attention. Ed, I had one quick, well, two quick, one
Sure.
question, one comment. At City Fest, we were approached by somebody for middle school sports sign-ups, so they still can do that when they come to school, correct?
You know, yes. So the thing with the middle school signups, this is a good question by Paula too, you know, and we'll get there. People now are, of course, looking for things on the website
Yes,
and
yeah.
electronically much more so. So I even now in showing it to you, I'm thinking, that's a little too hidden. We got to get that out there a little bit more. But always in the case of middle school, we'll do it in school. Glenn already is planning on something day one. Glenn and I had a meeting for an hour and a half yesterday where we talked about things, and he has all kinds of stuff that he'll have ready for day one. So the word will get to the kids day one, and then we have a parent meeting. The meeting is day one for Tuttle, the 25th?
Yes, well, full school.
Full school, yeah. So we have the parent meeting that night. So nobody's gonna miss an opportunity, even if it seems much more last minute than does the process at the high
I
school.
wanted to make sure I didn't miscommunicate. This
Yeah.
parent was quite interested.
Yes.
And the other observation is, I wasn't actually recruiting, but I thought I was recruiting a football player for the high school, and it turned out he was about 9 years old.
Good job on
Maybe he will be eventually.
Might be.
Yeah. Well, we had a student move in from Tennessee who was a junior in high school who was 6'2", 260, and an offensive tackle.
Wow.
So, did you recruit him too? Or?
No.
Take credit.
If I'd seen him, I would have. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Welcome.
And again, I want to thank, publicly Ed and Patrick for, this obviously is a critical part of the work that we do in the district. And I know athletics, sometimes people, wonder about the balance between academic and athletics and activities. And I have to tell you, it's very, very important for a program to have that balance. And Ed has been very nice to always invite myself and Patrick to coaches' meetings, and I often get a chance just to say hello to them, which is great. But, you know, I always say that, you know, we want our kids to love going to the classrooms and love to learn. And I think that's mostly true in our system. But what we have is a voluntary opportunity for kids to self-select and go into activities and programs that really excite them, to really help, you know, on the journey of working and collaborating together as individuals. Is kind of a life lesson in a very short period of time, and I'm really proud of that. I think there's also some great history, as Ed articulated, around when needs come up. To think that back in the day we would have had snowboarding where we didn't even know what it was, or there's a variety, or cricket, you know, we wouldn't have had those. It's because the administrators are listening to the students and responding, and I think that's really an important part of the whole balance of a student's experience. So again, I thank them.
And I would add too, not to get the last word, David, but mostly I can't let Patrick leave without mentioning a budget. But as we look at, more importantly, I think as we look at master visioning and planning and start to look at some of the needs you've identified, Ed, this is an important part of the educational experience for all our kids. So I really just would ask David and the administrative team to prioritize those within not only an operating budget, but within the longer term view of what we envision for delivering public education inclusive of co-curricular activities in South Burlington.
Nice.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. All right, now we'll move on to setting the agenda. So we have a work session on August 31st. To find it.
And that will be here at the middle school.
Okay.
We'll be up in room 213, which is the larger conference room upstairs. Just so you make note of that. On that, we have board job description, continued discussion, role of student representatives. I have some ideas around that. If board have others that you want to have things included, I can make sure that's there. We've already talked about the master planning and visioning next steps, and then we're into our trying to catch up a little bit on 2.3 and 2.2 treatment of staff.
If I could just ask a question on the board job description, did we create a subcommittee to look at that, and have they met?
I don't know. I haven't kept track of. I think it was.
Dan and I are on that committee, and Dan has sent me some ideas. I've sent back some brief comments, and we're meeting probably Monday morning. Dan's been out this past week and a half, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we're on track. It makes sense to leave it on the agenda?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
One thing, David, do you want to think about modifying the workflow so that we put work plan and visioning first in case community members want to participate in
Sure.
that?
So move that up right after consent agenda?
I think so. Does everyone else agree?
Yeah, that works.
Is there,
Respectful of
is
that.
there a hard stop on this meeting? I'm just
We
trying to
haven't-
figure out how long it's going to be.
We didn't put times on this one yet. You can let me know that if you want to go for a couple hours.
I think we were targeting no later than 8 on this.
Okay. So
And
we'll,
maybe we want to publish it with that as an end time.
that's great.
Okay, so we'll move to the proposed agenda for the regular meeting of September 2nd.
So one of the things we need to add on the September 2nd, and kind of said this more publicly, that I think the rebel conversation should be, and we need to put it in here. So that ought to be an add. I don't know exactly where you might like that to be in the agenda.
Why don't we do
Or
that
for the-
after the superintendent's report?
Okay.
Now, are we going to try to get that more published somewhere?
You know, you do a good job around putting that out. I think tonight will be important. The other paper, Corey's here. Thank you, Corey. I can follow up with some of the folks that were wanting statements tonight about what we talked about, who came in late. I know the Free Press was here, Molly Walsh was here, so that may be important to just do a little you know, just to update them since they made that effort here and let people know. I don't know necessarily if you're interested in, you know, just a free flow of feedback, or if you'd like, you know, have ideas on things you'd like specific feedback on. I mean, probably that would be difficult, I think, but.
Right. Are you suggesting, do we want to have a dialogue, or do we want to?
Yeah, I mean, the
hear
board's
comments?
interested in your, you know, in your
Right.
feedback, if we're going to put out information around your, you know, your feeling around the name Rebels attached to the South Burlington High School.
Well, I think
schools.
what we discussed this evening was making that a session to hear feedback.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we
that's
could
good.
make that decision
Right.
following
Agreed.
the discussion.
Yeah, it's good.
And then a quick comment, if I'm looking at the two agendas for the meetings, we've got action on executive limitations policies on August 31st of 2.3 and 2.2, and then we have an action on 2.3 again on September 2nd. Do you want to decide when you want action on those?
We usually put them on, assuming that you might be ready, so, you know.
Just for the bucket
Hold,
versus
yeah.
each of them? Okay.
Right.
Okay, so we'll keep the action under the policy monitoring in aggregate and then make that decision when we review it. Okay.
And I would rather not, I mean, if it's not warned for action and then you want to, then
Right. Then you're stuck.
we're in a trouble
Yep.
bucket that way. So I'd like for people, at least the public, to be
Yeah.
knowing that you may be taking action.
Okay.
David, may I just point out that the September 2nd meeting is actually scheduled for the Chamberlain School. And wonder, should it be there or should it be here, just because of the topic?
Well, that's a good point. Maybe we should.
It says it's a town. Well.
It was to be moved. I think we probably should keep it either at Frederick H. Tuttle or, and I think it might be a stretch in September with a lot of activity at the high school. So we keep it here as a meeting. Probably right. Thanks, Meg, John. So we'll keep it at FHTMS, and then we'll work our rotation up after that.
Okay. Any other comments on the September 2nd agenda?
No.
All right. We'll move on to future agenda items. And it looks like we have dates on everything that's on the list. And we only have 4 bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
Parking lots never looked so good.
We don't have the foundation
Yeah, that doesn't
update.
have a date on it.
Sorry. Yeah. Do you want to work to get a date for the next meeting? Okay.
And does it, I'm trying to read it quickly here, does the curriculum content doesn't have a date either, does it?
It's when we do monitoring report 2.1.
Oh, okay, so it's just that date. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to considering the minutes of July 23rd. Any changes or comments?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, those are accepted by consensus. And consider the minutes of the August 4th meeting. All right, seeing no comments, we'll accept those by consensus. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Want to talk about that briefly?
We have 2 things here. We have a hire of a .5 math coach, Rick Marcotte. Again, this was a budgetary a request to help advance the work at Frederick H. Tuttle based on some of our known needs, and also the bid on the snowplow removal bid recommendation. I know there was a few questions that came in from the board, and those are provided.
Yeah, hold on, I'm just reading through
Yeah.
the response here. So a quick question. I had asked a question about how does the proposed administrative or the administration's proposal on the snowplow contract compare? It is with the investment that was made, John, in the front loader, are we seeing a decrease in
Yes,
that?
we plan on it being a decrease, yes. Close to $10,000, it does amount to how bad a winter it is with the salt, et cetera.
Mhm.
But yes, we did the numbers when we bought the loader back in, I think it went to the board in June. And the contracted amount is only for the elementary schools and for the bus area.
But am I interpreting this correctly, that it used to be the total budget was at 83,000? We made that investment in equipment, so we're awarding, or recommending an award of this one at 38,000 approximately.
Right.
But in addition to that, it will now cost us, between equipment and labor, between 25 and 35,000?
That's right.
So
and salt, that's in there too.
So in aggregate, we're seeing a modest reduction, or again, based on needs of
Yeah,
about
so if you
10,000.
take this, it would be a $10,000 to $15,000 reduction from what we budgeted.
So I'm trying to understand how, if you look at the 3-year history with the prior vendor,
Yes.
included all 5 schools and the bus area, and it's still 67 to 82,000.
Right, we had a horrible winter in FY14, so the salt and et cetera was 82,000.
But 67, if you look at the 2 other years, versus the outlier, that investment with that vendor was less than what we think our total will be now.
Well, yes. But the loader, I'm putting the whole cost of the loader in as far as snow removal, and we've been using it for everything. So, once again, I don't want to soft sell what it's going to cost for snow, but I think this is a high estimate of what it would cost.
I think the other thing, I mean, some flexibility, John indicates the other off-season. So the front loader already in its deployment has used and probably deferred other rental equipment costs that would have added to other areas, and I don't know that we have that, we don't have that aggregated amount, but where we haven't had to have somebody else come in and do the work or rent the equipment because it's there. The other part is, under our current contract, we had provisions around snowfall limit, so if there was, I'm gonna say, less than an inch, again, IMS does a good job for us, but when it was less than an inch, when you're leaving a school board meeting, it would not get plowed. And, you know, there's some liability, you know, issues that we've had, particularly in a really active campus. And again, I think we feel that the front loader is gonna really help us in being responsive when we know there's a need, i.e. big events and things like that, where we're really being mindful of that. So it is, as you said, Elizabeth, I mean, it's very random.
Season, yes.
Yeah, seasonal around, and we've seen, if we went back more than the 3 years, you'd see variance.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember
I'm not
this
saying
is
always
one that-
up either.
this- I do recall this one has cycled a lot.
Oh, it
so,
has.
Yeah.
We once again, if we go back to 8 years ago, we paid $125,000 for this, not counting what, and I didn't even record what our own people spent.
Mm-hmm.
So with overtime, so we're in a good place. We're trying to get the last bit out of what we can for savings. When we came to buy the equipment back in June, I think it was June, Julie asked the question, can the district do all 5 campuses? We can't.
Yeah.
We just can't. That wouldn't be cost effective at all.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions on the consent agenda? Is this an action, David?
You know, I didn't clear that up from last time, whether we have it. I would ask for an action on the consent agenda item. It would be good. And I will clean it up whether we do that or not. Remember we had this last time?
But I know.
I like having just an action on the consent agenda. You don't have to act on each one of them, but you, all those in favor of the consent
Even though it
agenda.
doesn't say.
Well, we can make that modification.
Okay, Martin, any questions?
No, you got mine answered.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed by administration?
Also moved.
We'll let Martin move that in a second.
Go ahead, Julie.
We did, okay, wait a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and the motion passes. Thank you. Any questions on AP orders 4, 4A, 5, 5A, or 6? I think we did have some questions that were responded to prior to the meeting. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 14 then, AP order check to Palmieri Roofing in the amount of $56,000 and Negley and Chase in the amount of $123,110.
Do you want to just kind of give a summary on that, John, of where we are with the
Sure,
project?
the roof at Orchard is complete and done within budget. It was actually an excellent job, and it's all set, so. And there's been a subsequent payment to Palmieri that was under $50,000, so that's, just so you know that. We don't separate things to separate them, it's just that as their billing cycle. And secondly, the bill to Negley and Chase is for the July work on the ADA upgrades, the bathroom at the high school. So, once again, there haven't been any change orders in price at that project, and you'll see tomorrow where we are, and it will be real obvious. And there's a few things left to be done, but the ramp will be ready Monday for kids in wheelchairs, and I've sprained my ankle, so I can walk down there and take a shortcut to the, and just, it'll be ready, and the roof, or the windows, which is separate, are all in, except there's 2 side panels. It looks like we have plywood up there. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, there are metal panels that go in those sides. They'll be here. So we worked out with the new, the teachers up there, how it's gonna work. So.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
So do I have a motion to approve the 2 AP order checks as proposed?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes. And barring any other comments, David, anything else?
No, we're all set. The only thing is that adjourn to go back back into it.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn, and we'll go back into executive session briefly at this point.
So moved.